So with Eid al-Adha around the corner, people have a lot of questions about Udhiyah, and I wanted to get your insight on, the best way that we can do things.
Of course, Bismillah.
So the first question is, what type of animals are permissible for Udhiyah, and are there differences in those animals?
There are actually 4 types of animals that they're actually permissible for Udhiyah. The khiraf, ma'iz, baqar, ibil, goats, sheep, cows, and camels. 2 animals that are actually meant to be for single sacrifices, and these are the sheep and the goats. And camels and cows should be distributed into 7 people. So if they're a group of people or one family, they want to have one udhiyah together, they can actually have 7 shares for the animal. And the Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith narrated by Jabir, on the day of Hudaybiyah, the Prophet ﷺ has recommended his Sahaba to go and to sacrifice camels and distribute it into 7 of them. So 7 Sahaba will share in one udhiyah of camel. And then other Sahaba, they just, sacrificed sheep and goats as single sacrifices.
Okay, and so when we're sacrificing the animal, are there any specific dua we should recite?
So yes, it's highly recommended to say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. Bismillah, obviously, Allah Azza wa Jal blesses whatever you do, any act that you do by saying Bismillah, Allah brings blessings. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, فَاذْكُرُوا اسْمَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهَا صَوَافٍ, meaning mention the name of Allah as you're sacrificing your animal. And there are many du'as that you can actually consider as well. Maybe you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for qabul, for Allah to accept your sadaqah. These are the most common du'as that Prophet ﷺ would recite as he was sacrificing an animal.
So we've sacrificed the animal, now what do we do with its meat?
So the Prophet ﷺ, in a hadith narrated by Salama ibn al-Aqwa, he actually said that you should distribute your udhiyah into 3 parts. 1 part for you and your family, 1 part as a sadaqah, as a charity, and 1 part to store up, right? But subhanAllah, right now where the world is at, there's a high demand on those sadaqat, that they can actually be as sustenance for our brothers and sisters that they're actually going through hunger right now in Sudan and Palestine and many other countries. So if you're able to do so, if you have the financial capacity to actually sacrifice full animal and you send it out there to the people that they're really in dire need of this type of food, then I would definitely recommend leaving the entire udhiyah for Allah as a sadaqah, inshaAllah ta'ala.
But if someone did keep all the meat for themselves, would the udhiyah still be valid?
I mean, you don't want to be greedy, man. From the Islamic perspective, if you were to eat the entire meat of your udhiyah is still valid, right? But you're really missing on the whole concept of sacrifice here, because you're basically sacrificing something, right? So if you slaughter an animal and then just you take it, then you're missing the whole point here, right? So obviously right now there's a huge demand on those udhiyahs, especially to the people that they're really going through very difficult time around the globe, especially our people in Palestine, our families in Palestine that are going through this hunger. So I would definitely consider just giving my full udhiyah to the people that they're suffering right now on the ground. And subhanAllah, HHRD is one of the organizations that actually is distributing a lot of udhiyahs throughout Eid. So I would highly encourage people to consider giving their udhiyah to the people that they really need it right now. But if you want to eat it all, Bismillah, go ahead and eat it. Inshallah, we'll still consider it as udhiyah bi'idhnillah.
So can I have someone else do my udhiyah for me on my behalf?
The answer is yes. The Prophet ﷺ has sacrificed an animal on behalf of his wives in a hadith narrated by Aisha radiallahu anha. And so yes, you can delegate the performance of the udhiyah to an organization or someone else in different country. I myself will, inshallah ta'ala, give my Qurbani to HHRD to send it to the people of Gaza. So if you just look at the situation over there in Palestine and how people are going through this massive hunger. I would highly recommend everybody to just consider sending those qurbanis and those udhiyah to the people that they're in dire need of it. So what I really appreciate about HHRD is the fact that they're actually on the ground, risking their lives, and making sure that they can actually distribute the meat as much as they can with all of the obstacles that they have right now. But they're still committed, they're still sending out those trucks, they're still sending help to our brothers and sisters in Palestine. So I would encourage everybody to consider sending qurbanis to Palestine or to Sudan, to the people that they really need it.
So would it be possible for me to pay a certain amount instead of sacrificing an animal?
The answer is yes and no at the same time. Yes, if you were to send this money to an organization to perform an udhiyah on your behalf. No, if you just want to give this money as a generic donation, right? Because the udhiyah is a very specific ibadah that has a specific time and a specific procedure. So for instance, we are in the first 10 days of the Hijjah. But if you were to sacrifice an animal now before Yawm al-Eid, we call it 3 ayyam of tashriq. The first day of Eid, second day of Eid, third day of Eid. If you were to actually sacrifice an animal now, that would not consider as udhiyah. It would consider as just a generic sadaqah, right? So yes, it's very specific. That's why you need to set your intention that you want to sacrifice an animal for Allah to revive the sunnah of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. B, you have to consider the timing, the proper timing when it comes to sacrificing an animal, and that is in first ayyam al-tashriq, first day of Eid, or the second day of Eid, or the third day of Eid, inshallah.
So what are the recommended practices for the day that we're doing the sacrifice, and how can we do it in the best way?
Actually, before the day of sacrifice, when we enter the first 10 days of the Hijjah, the Prophet ﷺ has recommended us not to cut our hair and our nails. He said, when you first see the moon of the Hijjah, which means like the beginning of the month, you should refrain from cutting your nails and your hair if you intend to sacrifice an animal. So that's the first sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And then it's recommended, obviously, not to miss the Eid prayer, because many people get busy and get overwhelmed and they just want to go and sacrifice the animal and then they skip Eid prayer. So it's highly recommended, sunnah mu'akkad, and some madhab it's wajib. So it is highly emphasized by the Prophet ﷺ is to actually pray Salat al-Eid. It's also recommended to bring your family, bring your kids to witness this ritual, so they can actually learn and they can follow your guidance in the future, inshallah, follow your legacy of, and it's originally the legacy of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam that we're following, and we want to pass it down to our children as well, inshallah.
Can women perform the sacrifice?
Oh yes, for sure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى وهو مؤمن فَلَنُحْيِيَنَّهُ حَيَاةً طَيِّبَةً. Whoever from the male or female does a form of a charity or any good deed, then Allah will bless their dunya with a good life. And then he said, وَلَنَجْزِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْرَهُمْ بِأَحْسَنِ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. And then they will get the highest reward from the best thing that they have done in this life. So yes, women can sacrifice an animal, and they actually can do the actual ritual of sacrifice if they're able to do it, then yes, it's recommended and it's sunnah.
Now, can my meat be distributed cooked, or does it have to be raw?
Well, the Prophet ﷺ didn't explicitly mention how should you distribute your meat, whether it's raw or cooked. It's actually left upon the circumstances, the time, the place that you live in. Some local communities would rather have hot meals for homeless or for the poor, that they actually need a prep meal. And in other occasions, raw meat will actually be better. So it depends really your circumstances and the place that you live at.
Can I perform an udhiyah for a family member who has passed?
Well, that's a very good question, because the ibadat in general, the rituals of ibadat are divided into two types. There are certain acts of worship that you cannot perform it on behalf of somebody who passed away, and there are other acts of worship that it's permissible for you and it's actually recommended for you to perform it on behalf of somebody who you lost. And so how do we know this? We always go back to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and we see during his lifetime that when it comes to sacrificing animals, he actually sacrificed an animal one time, and he said, I'm sacrificing this on behalf of Muhammad and my family and the entire ummah. So he has sacrificed on behalf of others, and that's why the ulama scholars will say, well, when it comes to this specific act of worship, udhiyah, it is permissible to perform it on behalf of somebody who passed away. So actually, this is really a good question, because now, more than ever, we need our brothers and sisters across the globe to consider performing as much udhiyah as we can, so we can actually consider sending these udhiyahs to the people that they actually need it. Whether it is through a relief organization like HHRD or any other ways to consider sending those udhiyah to the people that they truly need it.
What are the etiquettes of sacrificing an animal?
So number one, first and foremost, make the intention to perform the sacrifice slowly for Allah Azza wa Jal. And the niyyah, كما يقول العلماء, محلها القلب. Like niyyah, it not necessarily has to be verbalized, but more importantly, you actually have the intention by your heart that you're going to sacrifice this animal for Allah Azza wa Jal. Number two, there are actually a couple of etiquettes when it comes to slaughtering the animal, right? The Prophet ﷺ, out of his rahmah, he used to recommend his Sahaba to make sure that they sharpen their knives before slaughtering the animal, because the Prophet ﷺ does not want to see the animal suffering, right? So he wants to make the process as fast as possible, less painful as possible as well. Also, from the etiquettes of slaughtering an animal is to make sure that the animal does not see other animal that's being slaughtered, because you don't want really for the animal to feel that pain before getting sacrificed. One of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is to also allow the blood to be completely drained from the animal. That makes the animal pure, the meat of the animal will be pure and good for consumption as well. Also, one of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that as you are slaughtering the animal, you tadhkur ism Allah, like you mention the name of Allah and you say Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and you start slaughtering the animal bi'idhnillah.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh, and early Eid Mubarak to you and everyone watching.
Jazakumullah khairan, the same for you and for everybody who's watching. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Eid a blessed Eid for the entire Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and alleviate the suffering of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this Eid the best Eid of the brothers and sisters in Palestine, Sudan, Kashmir, and everywhere that they're suffering. Ya Rab, bring to them nothing but peace, tranquility, and blessings, inshallah. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.